would you say that if you were to look back now, do you think your younger you was chasing achievement, or was it chasing worth at that time when you were right out of
Actually,
college?
both. Yeah. No, it was actually both. Is that I was for a long time, very mindful of achievement
Hmm.
and benchmark that against really what I would consider to be and still do the wrong things. I was benchmarking myself against other people and other things. Whereas the real benchmark should be, am I a better person today than I was yesterday?
Love that.
And
Ladies and gentlemen, most people spend their lives chasing success, achievement, and identity, believing it will finally make them feel whole or purposeful. And today's guest is Scott Lackey, Army veteran, Ironman triathlete, columnist, not a journalist, entrepreneur, and author of Wake Up to Die Again. And this conversation is about what happens when the life you built no longer matches who you are actually becoming. Scott, thank you so much for being here and being a guest on the Blue Stiley podcast.
I could not be more excited to be here, Blue. Thank you for that gracious introduction. I look forward to digging into that today for both of us and the audience.
Well, I love your accent, so I'm just going to have to go with it on this one. I could listen to you and Bert Thornton all day long, and our phone conversations. It's awesome to hear that. I'm just like, man, that's the storyteller I want to hear. So I hope, and I know that you wrote a book. Did you do an Audible as well?
I have not done the Audible. That is actually going to be starting in June. So I have not done that yet, but that's coming up in June. It's going to be unique, by the way, is I just want to say that in between each chapter, my wife and son and daughter are going to be a part of the discussion in between each chapter because they lived many of these stories, but they don't know the whole story, hence the book.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, as long as it's your voice, because I could listen to that all day long.
It
That was
is.
the whole point of that. So, well,
It is.
For people who don't know you yet, can you give everyone just a really quick introduction of who you are and the kind of work that you do?
That sounds great. I appreciate that. And you mentioned some of them, and I guess it's worth running through the highlights. I'm going to make a point with that. And yes, Army veteran, served in Germany for 2 years, in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. That was great. College graduate degree in finance. Two-time inventor. One of them was patented and funded by a private equity firm for $3 million. Yes, I've done Ironman races, hiked volcanoes, right? Started businesses from nothing and grown them into significant business concerns. I've seen the tops of mountains where I could see horizon to horizon, and I've been to the bottom of life's Marianas Trench in the darkest days and had to figure out how to recover from that. And I like to say sometimes that I've lived 9 lives. And it's really how I feel as a human being. And that led to writing the book, ultimately, was Waking Up to Die Again. And I know it's a provocative title, and we'll get into that later. But that's a run through of a lot of different things that I've done in life that have brought me to where I am today. But I'll say this, and I mean this, and I talk about this in the book. Everybody can have all the plaques and trophies. I'm done with that. I've been done with that for a long time. The things that are important to me today is making sure I take care of my family, my son and my daughter. Those are primary number ones for me. And then adjacent to that is trying to be a better version of myself every day through challenging myself through some very difficult things like Ironmans, among other things. But that's where I've been, but not what I focus on. And I'm really focused on family and faith and person.
Well, I think that taps into something that a lot of people are chasing, and that we mentioned that at the very beginning. And it's like everybody's trying to chase success and that self-worth, when in reality, sometimes it's those life experiences, those net experiences is what I call them, that are most valuable and most memorable. We had on Russ Banham, who is an actor and an author, and he just talks about like all of these little difficulties, all these challenges, all these setbacks, all of these horrible no's that he had received. It's like, in the end, it doesn't really matter. What really matters to him is his family next to him and the memories that he has and the difference and the impact that he's made in his life. And to have someone on who's I'm going to call him 50 years old because he's older than that. But for somebody who's gone through life chasing so much achievement and all the accolades and all of the trophies, and he has so many books published, and it's like, but in the end, really, that doesn't matter to him. It's about the net experiences that you have. And I love that you mentioned that. So would you say that, I guess, if you were to look back now, do you think your younger you was chasing achievement, or was it chasing worth at that time when you were right out of college?
Actually, both. Yeah. No, it was actually both. Is that I was for a long time, very mindful of achievement
Hmm.
and benchmark that against really what I would consider to be and still do the wrong things. I was benchmarking myself against other people and other things. Whereas the real benchmark should be, am I a better person today than I was yesterday?
Love that.
And two parallel paths, I can say both of those. One will take you to the places you're not supposed to be, and the other one will take you to places where you're going to experience a lot of love, joy, peace, grace, compassion, etc. And so that was no doubt my mentality leaving high school, going into the military. I did the military first, that achievement. The other side of that, you mentioned about people saying, and me one of them, what's really important to me now is family.
Hmm.
And I have to say, to be able to say that, other things had to be very important to you first, and to
Hmm.
figure that out before you could get to the place
Oh,
where
absolutely.
you realize it's really family. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like a transition, right? It's like a coming of age. It's like this enlightened feeling of, or these aha moments. The light bulb finally
That's
goes
right.
off in your head where you're like, what is most important? Is it my time? Is it how much money I have in the bank account? Is it the memories that I'm creating? And somewhere along that journey, we all have that different epiphany and that bright light that goes off. And some people never even realize or go through it. But I think that those transitions are different. And I also believe that as a kid, you're set up to, this is what you have to do to achieve this. Then you got to do this to achieve that. And it's like all through school, you do these classes to graduate with this. Then you go get a job. Then you do this. And it's like after college, you're in that unknown state and you don't know what to do. And that's that journey where all of a sudden it's like you start to put all these experiences together. And then all of a sudden you're like,
Right.
something happens to you along the way. And you're like, is this really what's most important to me? And it sounds like along that journey, you started to get hit with different ideas, and we're like, oh, well, this actually is maybe not the right path that I want to go down.
Yeah, I call those lightning strikes, but I like what you described, Blue, because what you're describing is a word like causality, right? Which
Hmm.
is X begets Y. And the world tells us that, our family tells us that. Look, you go to college, you get a degree, you get a job, you have a baby, you get a house. X begets Y. There's causality there, right? And I'm not saying that we don't follow generally that path, whether
Yeah.
it's college or trade school or whatever or no school. I'm not saying we don't do that, but my argument, and should we do those things? Sure, to whatever degree that you believe is the right thing for you. But back to the point, which is what I call lightning strikes. Right, these are things that are going to happen to all of us, and some of them are good lightning strikes. Things where maybe when you met your wife, like I did, and
Hmm.
that changed me forever. I couldn't undo the person I was once I met her, and I knew, or vice versa. A lightning strike, the one I focus on to some degree in my book, are those moments in life where something happens to us that changes us in such a way that we can no longer be the person we were milliseconds ago. Could be a loss of a family member, could be a diagnosis, could be you got fired. There's a long list of things
Yeah.
that can happen and that I call lightning strikes as a metaphor,
Hmm.
right? But that they change us forever. And now we've got to reconcile that. And we've got to, and to your point too about, yeah, you get in your late 20s and you're out of college, you have a job, and you got to start. You're like, wow, wait a minute. Is this all there is? Is this where I'm going? Is this where I'm supposed to be? All of those questions that we wrestle with, not just in our 20s, right? We wrestle with that our entire life.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I like your lightning strike only because I think of the Great Outdoors with John Candy, where the guy gets hit with a lightning bolt 69 times or something like that. That's a lot of hits, right? Um,
Haven't seen that in a long time.
Oh, neither have I, but I think my kids deserve to watch it for sure. It's funny. These things do hit us, and it's how you pick yourself up and what you learn from it, and whether or not you want to dwell on those things, or whether or not you want to keep pushing forward, or do you want to change? Right? Because when those
Yeah.
things happen, it's up to you. You do have a choice. No matter what's on your plate, you get to choose what you do with whatever's on that plate, and that can be terrifying. And so, how did you, when you began receiving these lightning strikes, on the bad ones, let's say, not the good ones, because the good ones, you're like, yes, let's keep them coming, right? But the bad ones,
That's
how
right.
do you get through that? Like, how did you start to learn to pick yourself up again and keep going?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. And I think this is an important question, honestly, for the listeners, because we're all going to have lightning strike moments in our life. And at the very basic level, okay, let's call it pre K level. All right.
Hmm.
The actions that I took were to no longer run from what was chasing me, that fear, that pain, ignoring it, burying it, working really hard to cut out the noise. I did the opposite, is that I made a decision early in my life that I was going to turn around and face whatever that noise was in my head telling me all those scary things. And early on, I began to learn that the more I was willing to address whatever it was that was chasing me, whatever it was that was bothering me, whatever truth it was I wasn't willing to admit to myself, it
Hmm.
no longer had power over me. It's amazing what we learn. And I don't think this is a surprise to most people, but I think it's amazing what we learn is that most of the time when we address fear, we find out that it's an inch deep and 5 miles wide.
Hmm.
So it looks massive, but it
Yeah.
has no structure.
Well, yeah,
And so that was the early stages of what I did. But I have to fast forward because you have to build on that because that's not enough. Just addressing it isn't enough
uh-huh.
because addressing it is part of reconciliation. But then I wanted to get to a point where I became the storm, if I could use that word, where I was the attacker, meaning on myself, right? And that many years later came in the form of when I started training for my very first Ironman. Is the question that I asked myself, which was, Scott, what are you willing to sacrifice? Because I can tell the audience, if you answer that question, what you're willing to sacrifice, I can tell you exactly which direction you're going. Because the answer for most people is, I'm not really willing to sacrifice anything. I want to sit on the couch at night and watch TV and drink my wine, or I want to do this or that. There's all of those types of behavior, but reconciliation, facing those things first, and then moving to more sophisticated things is to recovery, to getting better, to dealing with it, is answering the question, what am I willing to sacrifice?
Okay, well, let's dig into that a little deeper because that is what are you willing to sacrifice is the same as asking like what's the opportunity of cost of not doing it, right? Like if I don't face this fear, if
That's
I
it.
don't face this demon that is in front of me or this challenge, what is it going to do to me in the long run? Is it going to make me stronger? Is it going to be better or am I going to lose out on something? So, um
Yeah.
how do you deal with that?
Yeah, the challenge with that question is, and just to be transparent here, is I don't like that question. And I don't like it just for me,
Mhm.
is because what I learned about myself, and I believe this about everybody else, is that when I ask that question, that opportunity cost question, is I always, always, always underestimate significantly the cost of not changing. I
Mm,
rationalize it, I discount it, I peanut butter spread it out. It's not going to be that bad. In
mhm.
essence, lying to myself just so I don't have to go and address the pain of what I'm running from. In most cases, the very thing we're running from is the thing we need to reconcile so we can have that breakthrough, have that new moment in life, that new expansion, that new whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So I'm not a big fan of the question of, I mean, again, I'm not saying you shouldn't do an opportunity cost analysis. You shouldn't ask yourself, what are you willing to risk? I just think it's deeper than that. I think that to me, that question needs to go deeper.
Well, and
Because for me, when I asked that question, I just want you to know is that it many times it came back to me discovering a broken promise with myself,
oh,
right?
okay. Oh, well, okay. So let's talk about like getting in shape, for example, right? Everybody knows how to get in shape. You move more and you don't eat crappy food, and that's simple. But it's just as simple not to do those things. And so what we do is we rationalize. We don't want to face the fear of having to get up early,
Yep.
get to the gym, put on the
Yep.
right clothes, go in, do the work. If I go into the gym, that means less sleep. It means less time with my kids. It means I'm going to have to rush to get the kids out there. It's like there's so many things. So it's easier and more simple just to put it off and to make up the excuse and kick the can down the curb. But that is true with anything, right? It's not
Yep.
that difficult to deal with these things, but it's just as difficult not to deal with them. And so it's that opportunity cost. How easy is it for you to deal with that situation? How did you decide that it's worth it instead of, let's say, spreading that peanut butter down? Like if you decide at the moment, like this is worth growing and becoming better, even if it hurts a little bit, even if it is painful.
Yep.
What is it what's the mantra? What is it that gets you off of your butt to actually change or have that lightning strike not push you down, but to get you up off the ground to grow and become better?
Yeah, I'll crystallize it this way. I'm going to use an example, a real world example of something that kind of clicked with me. And it was one morning before one of my workouts that I was training for an Ironman workout and at a track. It was cold that morning, a little misty rain. And the voice in my head as soon as the alarm went off is, Scott, you've been working out really hard, and why don't you just sleep in today? Give your body some rest. All of that stuff that we all talk about, that negative voice in our head of why we just need to be complacent.
Mhm.
And I didn't necessarily listen. I got to put my shoes on and went about my business of going on the run. But it was right before that process that the voice said to me, Scott, nobody's going to know. And that triggered personally something inside me. It triggered it. And I said, wait a minute,
Yeah.
that's a lie.
Mhm.
I'm going to know.
Yes.
And Blue, this is the real answer is.
Mhm.
The real answer is I'm going to freaking know. And that's what matters. Not my neighbor, not my wife, not my friends, me. I have to live with this. So
Mhm.
this gets me fired up when we talk about it. Right. And it gets me fired up because it's important that I know the truth. I'm not going to lie to myself. And by the way, if I do lie to myself, then I own the consequences. Nobody else, not the world.
Mhm.
That
is a
so that's my
big
answer.
that's you reflecting on yourself, though. That is so much easier said than done. And I cannot agree with you any more than that, Scott, because we know, I know that I sandbagged it. I know I didn't give it my all. I know that I threw the towel in just a little bit earlier. And it's how you act it doesn't matter whether people are watching you or not, right? How you show up every single day. And so what are you doing every single day to not only go above and beyond for other people, but for yourself? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you talking to yourself that 3 to 5% up more? And like, what is that self-talk to say, I know I can do better. And if I cheat or if I sandbag, it's on me.
Yep. And therein lies the different measuring stick, right? And I did this early in my life. Earlier in my life, I wonder what they think about me. I need to wear this so that they will respect me. Everything I was doing was because I wanted somebody else to approve of me.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I got to a point, I thought, wait a minute, why don't you approve of yourself? And I would ask myself this question, Scott, what is it inside you that is so empty? Where is that place that you're trying to fill it with a possession, a trip, a person, a comment? What is it?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what it was ultimately? It was just ultimately that I didn't believe in myself. And the reason I didn't believe in myself is because I kept breaking promises to myself. So I didn't trust myself. So as life went on, I had to literally relearn what it means to trust myself. And I had to do little things like lily pad jumps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I trust myself just for this week to get up at X time in the morning? Can I just do one thing right for 5 days of getting? So I would set up these little tests for myself, even during the Ironman training. Mm-hmm. I would set up these little tests myself to continue to relearn and discipline myself that I can trust my decisions because it's only going to me that's accountable to me. And man, when I did that though, Blue, it really did change a lot. Life got easier, not harder. It got easier because all I had to do was work with myself. I didn't care what anybody else think.
Well, not only that, but you're gaining that confidence, those confident anchors in yourself, but you're also making these small little wins that are achievable. You're breaking it down to an easier processed ability, right? And you're starting to see that you're actually moving forward. You're getting traction. You're getting that momentum. And even if it's small, it's still momentum moving forward. I have friends that reach out to me all the time. And they're like, Blue, I can't lose weight. I'm not getting to the shape that I want. And I'm like, it would be awesome if you could lose 100 pounds today. That'd be awesome. But it took longer than a week to put on 100 pounds. So it's going to take you longer than a week to take 100 pounds off. Start making those micro wins. And when you start seeing that, like actually start to see the scale go down, you're like, those are those micro wins. But then you have to stay consistent and you have to put that intent and that purpose behind it. And it sounds to me like that is also what you had to do. Not only did you have to have this little click and talk to yourself positively, but it's like an Ironman sounds awful to me, Scott. That's not my jam. I hate running, right? But every day you have to consistently, continuously talk to yourself. How did you do that?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is like the title of your book and an article that I wrote recently as a columnist in the newspaper. Mm-hmm. And it's small percentage change, right, to gain a distance. And that's the way you do an Ironman is lily pad after lily pad. My coach likes to say we're stacking bricks, right? Mm-hmm. We're baling hay, okay? And I learned, this is one of the takeaways from training for an Ironman of how you do it is, and this is the way I run my life now. and versus the way we talked earlier about achievement. The way I measure my success now is 100% about distance, not about achievements.
Mm.
Or I'm sorry, not distance, excuse me, direction, not about distance.
Okay.
Right? I'm always evaluating everything I'm doing. Am I going the right direction? Not did I gain distance today? Because some days I feel like I'm going backwards. That's okay. Maybe I may feel like I'm going backwards, but I'm moving in the right direction. And that's how that's how I trained for an Ironman. Is I woke up every day and I made a decision. I can't worry about tomorrow's workout. I can't worry about next week. I can't worry about the half marathon. I can't worry about any of that. All I can control is today. And so on this lily pad today, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do my job. That's how I did it. And I will say one last thing about this. Yes, when I crossed the Ironman finish line, that's when I got the medal. Absolutely. But I write about this. That's not when I became an Ironman. I actually became an Ironman over the 11 months of training when I didn't want to do it. And I griped and moaned and bitched and complained, all that stuff. All those days that I got up and made the decision that I'm going to do the workout. That's how I became an Ironman. In the stitches, in the rain, all of that stuff. Crossing the finish line was just like graduation day. I didn't become a college graduate on the 4-year degree program. That was get the degree. I became a college graduate after 4 years.
Oh,
I hope that makes sense.
100%. I'll tell it another way. I'll tell it in a martial arts ninja way. And that is that I thought that getting your black belt meant that you were going to be a ninja. And that meant you were a master. And the reality is that is the basic understanding of the fundamentals when you receive your Shodan. But I thought it was. I thought that was the end. And it wasn't. That was like a big lightning strike to me where it was like, wait a minute, you have more degrees after this, more stairs. And Dan means a step or a place to go up. And so Shodan is just your first step. Nidan is your second step. Sandan your third step. And it's like, it was just the basic understanding of the fundamentals. And that is life, because school does not end the day that you graduate from school. It's like that the rest of your life is school. But how you see that and how you interpret all of those challenges, all of those classes that you take, all of those hard instructors that you have, all of those bad grades that you get are so important to look at them as life is your school.
I love that story. And this is what I hope your listeners will wrestle with, those who are struggling right now. If you can honor your promises to yourself again for 1 week, you're going to create elevation. And at the end of that 1 week, you're going to be able to look back and go, wow, look what I did over a week. And you should smile and give yourself grace and pat yourself on the back. Because if you can do 1 week, you can do 1 week in a day and 1 week in 2 days. And there will be a time like Blue or myself where you're going to look back a little bit higher on the mountain and you're going to look down at that valley and go, man, look how far I've come. But then you're also going to turn around and you're going to go, wow, no matter how high I get, there's a whole lot more elevation ahead of me. And I don't know where that goes. But what I do know is when I wake up every day, I want to be a better person today than I was yesterday. I know that.
Oh, I love that. And there could be another mountain, right? Like once you peak a certain mountain, you can go to a different mountain, or you can jump from that mountain.
How about this? There could be a valley.
Well, and you don't know. And you had mentioned something earlier. It's like, I love that the analogy of a direction. You're going in a direction because there's no straight path. And as long as you're moving in the direction that you want to go, that's great. I hate running. I do, but I kind of run. My wife tries to push me a little bit. And it's sometimes when I do run, the next day I hurt so bad that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm taking steps back literally. And you had mentioned this, like sometimes you'll take a step back. Sometimes you have to regress in order to progress. But as long as I keep walking or jogging or running or sprinting in the direction that I want to go, I am making headway. And it sounds like that's what the message is that you're trying to push with this, is that those lily pads jumping. If someone was listening to you right now, like what would you tell them? Like if you're on that lily pad and you're stuck and you feel that stickiness on there, how do you take that first jump to that next lily pad?
Yeah, I love you asking that question.
We're going to be right back after a word from our sponsor.
After a car accident, insurance companies will take every shot they can to leave you with nothing. But at Dubin Law, the game isn't over until you get the money you deserve. So call Dubin Law and add us to your roster today.
How do you take that first jump to that next lily pad?
Yeah, I love you asking that question. And if you do feel stuck, again, I'm going to ask you to turn inward because now we're going to talk about two things. I thought when I was stuck on a lily pad that it was about addition. I needed this, X, Y, Z. I needed something to get off that lily pad. And by the way, if I could just get that something just around the corner, just over the hill, I'd get to the next lily pad.
Okay, stop.
And for me,
so what you're saying is that it basically is that if I get this amount of money, then I'll be happy. If I get this, if I have this nice house, if I have this, I'm going to be happy. But in reality, you're saying that's not the lily pad. You don't need that in order to, you don't need money to make money, is basically what I'm hearing you say, to take that jump.
I'm specifically saying that, but I'm also, that's a macro way of saying it, but I also want to knock it down to a micro, which is, I know you don't like to run, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? If I had a pair of running shoes, I would run. Okay. So it doesn't matter if it's a macro event. If I had that house, I'd be happy. Or if I had that job, I'd be happy. It's a micro event as well. If I had a better pair of running shoes, if I had this type of furniture, if I wore these type of clothes, it's spread between micro to macro. That's addition. That's living a life of addition. I need these things to be happy. And what I found out, again, for me, is that no, Scott, you chased addition for a long time. And every time you arrived, it was empty and nobody was there. So then if it's not about addition, Scott, then what did you do differently to get off that lily pad? Oh my gosh, subtraction. Subtraction. I had to give up things to get off the lily pad. It was the things that I refused to give up that didn't allow me to get to the next lily pad, which is one of those sayings that I was talking about when I was doing, I think I talked about this on the Ironman workouts, is, Scott, what are you willing to sacrifice? So that's the question back to the person stuck on the lily pad is if you're stuck, if you literally cannot move forward with your goals, aspirations, and ambitions, I would be asking you, what do you need to stop doing more than what do you need to add? It's not about addition. You need to stop doing something. You need to figure that out. Something's holding you back, and you need to identify that. And maybe it's that fear you're running from. So that would be my challenge then. What are you willing to sacrifice? And I'm not talking about possessions. The answer for me to do an Ironman, what I'm willing to sacrifice was I'm willing to sacrifice myself. Okay. And so that would be my challenge to them, is that look at subtraction, not addition, to move forward. It's a little counterintuitive.
Well, but it's a different way of saying it, right? And so, for example, my book, The Sum of Four, is we all get to four differently. And it doesn't matter if it's 5 minus 1, even though that's not a sum, right? It could be 2 plus 2. And we will all get to our destination. We can all jump from that lily pad to another lily pad. And the way that you're going to do it is going to be different than every single other person. You could look like the same frog next to you, and you might look like it, but maybe they jump a little earlier, or maybe it takes you a little longer. And so it's, as long as you're getting there, and whether that's subtraction or addition, you're getting to that next lily pad.
It is. And my argument is that how other people got there, other than you learning from it, possibly, is irrelevant, because we're all on our own independent journey. We may walk the same path together for years, but we're going different destinations. We all have a different destination. And you know, your title, and you talk about this in the book, I'm still in the early parts of it. You imply this about everybody's on a different journey, right? And so, yes, all of that is true, but I just have to stress it is counterintuitive and very painful for people to even consider that there's something I need to stop doing, and that's why I'm stuck. But until they reconcile that, that's just a strong recommendation from me. My life really did not start changing until I began to give up things. And it was the giving up things that allowed me to make the great progress forward personally.
Oh, that's golden. And that is beautiful. You also mentioned something just a little bit there that I heard, and that is that we make up excuses of why we're not going to make that jump. So I don't have those brand new Air Jordans, so I'm not going to go play basketball. You don't need Air Jordans to jump higher, right? You just need to put on some Nikes and just go jump, right? Like, you don't have to have the perfect workout outfit to do push-ups. Just drop down and start doing push-ups, right? And so it's like we make up these excuses that if I'm not going to start today because I don't have the right equipment, I don't have the right car, I'm not going to go apply for that job because I don't have a nice suit yet. put on the nicest thing you can and go in and try to get the suit. Put the repetitions in and start moving the direction that you want to go. Because even if you don't get that job that you're applying for, you're going to get some kind of experience. You're going to get those repetitions in. You're going to get a little more confident. You're going to, oh, I should have said this. Well, the next one that you go for, you're going to say it right. So you're learning along the process, even if you don't have the right shoes.
Yeah. I'm going to give you two quick examples from my past life. Hey, Scott, how did you explain to me one more time how you got a personal letter from the president and CEO of American Airlines telling you that you could interview to come into the management program of American Airlines? How'd that happen?
Oh, tell me.
And the answer was, I wrote him a letter and he responded. That's how. But how many people, Blue, how many people would say, that's stupid? Who would do such a thing? Me. I'm the idiot. And I got a letter back. Okay. And I also sent it to the other airlines and I got no responses from them, but I got it back from the one I wanted it from at the time in my life. True story. Hey, Scott, tell me one more time how you became a driver for a 2-star general in Germany in a nuclear missile unit. How does that happen? I raised my hand and volunteered when they tell you not to do it in the military. And they said, okay.
You asked.
So I asked.
Okay. So hold on. Why were you not afraid to ask? Does this go back to your pre-K time period where you learned, like, I'm not going to run from my fears. I'm not going to be worried about what people think about me or whatever. Or because I, like you, have no problem asking for directions. Like, I'm like, it's going to save me time and money. And I'm just going to be like, hey, how do you get there? I don't know how to do it. I don't mind asking because I'll never know if I don't ask. And the cost of not asking might hurt me more. That hesitation, being afraid of hesitation, can cost you everything, right? And so how did you learn to just take that chance to be okay with saying, hey, I asking? Yeah.
I like to answer that two ways. The first one is, I want to give you the catchphrase. The answer to the question you never ask is always no. That's the first thing. The second thing is, in these examples that I gave you, they were earlier in my life. One was in the military and one was when I was in college, the American Airlines story. And I was in, again, the early stages of my life of learning myself, my capabilities, what I was willing to do. And I didn't realize it then, but I was asking myself the question then, what are you willing to sacrifice? But it wasn't so succinct like that. I was exploring all of that as a young man, right? And I left the military with 3 words that I still carry with me today. And it can take you to places you're supposed to be and places you're not supposed to be. And those 3 words are make it happen. And I strongly believe in that. Make it happen. Even if you fail miserably, make it happen. Because that's a chapter in my book. The gifts are in the pain, right? Success taught me nothing. Failure taught me everything. So I'm not scared of failure like everyone else. That's something we just have to get over. And we opened up talking about, fear of failure, right? But that's the answer. In the early days, like you, I just wasn't afraid to ask the question. And I wasn't even afraid of the answer because I just felt like whatever answer I got back, that was going to be a lily pad of information that allowed me to move forward incrementally. And let me give you a blue Stiley answer.
Okay.
You and I had a 15, 20-minute introductory call scheduled, and it turned into an hour because we were asking each other questions back and forth, and we continued down that path, completely natural from 2 people, right? And so it is a gift to the listeners. If you're willing to ask questions and willing to listen, you don't have to do anything, but be a willing listener, be a learning ship, not a knowing ship. It is a beautiful place to be, and it'll take you to some great places.
I mean, it's just a wealth of knowledge, right? Like, and anyone can be that wealth of knowledge for you, or a fountain of knowledge.
Yes.
You can learn from anybody. And so if you and I have an hour conversation, maybe I can give you some nugget on how to be a keynote professional speaker, or about writing a book, or you can give me about how I want to not do an Ironman, right? Because I can learn what not to do just based off of what you're talking about. But it's like, it's true. It's in real, genuine conversations that you have with someone where you actually sit down across from them and you have a good talk with them. They reveal things, you reveal things, and you learn. You're one of the greatest things that I got as being a personal trainer and a strength coach for years was I was basically like a psychiatrist for people. I was like, all I would do is sit around and I would listen to people and their stories and their pain. And I'm like, I am not alone. Like these people are going through
Yeah.
things that I've gone through, and then I could bounce ideas off of them because then they would realize that they're not the only person going through that. And
Yeah.
we would learn from each other. And I'm like, it just makes us a more, I guess, a tighter community where we're not alone. You don't
Yeah.
have to go through life alone and through all these pains. It's like having these real conversations with people and wanting to learn more than know everything. It just has opened so many doors for me.
Yeah. I love the saying, be curious, right?
Mhm.
You know, my son said something the other day about, he goes, man, Dad, everybody's talking to everybody. I was like, oh, I know. That's the problem. We don't have conversations anymore,
Mhm.
right? You know, I travel a lot like you do, Blue. I fly a lot. I'm in a lot of hotels.
American
And
Airlines.
two questions I like. Do what?
For American Airlines.
Oh, not for American. Yeah. I'm a Delta junkie now,
Okay.
but no, I love asking people when I get to talk to pure, strangers, hey, how did you meet your wife? Or how did you meet your husband? And man, just to see them light up and tell that story. And it's always a great story of how they met.
Mhm.
Or vice versa. Somebody that's worked at the airlines for a long time. And I love to ask them, hey, how did you get here today? And we have some of the best conversations. And I learn amazing things about how people got to where they are today. And they love talking about it. And I love hearing about it. And I didn't used to do that. But I care now, and I want to talk more about those things, and that's why I love our conversation, is I think it makes us a better human being.
I think it not only makes you a better human being, but it makes the people who are around you feel good too. And I think we're
Yeah,
missing a lot of that. And how people feel when they're around you, whether they feel heard, seen, valued, and like they belong or that they actually matter, right? Are the conversations that you're not having with people make a huge impact. It's the small moments, it's not the big
yeah,
ones that make the biggest impact
yep,
and the biggest difference to people. And I think just being curious and making things happen just can change the trajectory of your life and
yes,
how you change your perspective. How do I stay curious throughout my entire life? How do I continue to swim like the shark? And how do I make it happen when there's no food in the ocean? Like, where am I going to go? Do I have to keep swimming left? I have to find that direction. It's like staying
yeah.
curious and making it happen. I love those two lines, Scott.
Well, and I love what we were talking about. I'm going to tie this into a conversation we had just a second ago about subtraction and addition.
Mhm.
When you're having these conversations with people and asking them these questions and engaging in that conversation, believe it or not, that's actually practicing subtraction, because you're getting them to talk about something that's special to them and you're learning. So what are you subtracting from that? You're subtracting yourself from the conversation. You're a listener.
Mm.
Small example, just a small little nuance there. Subtract yourself from the conversation, and not completely, right?
Mhm.
You're not anemic, but focus on letting them answer the question of how did you meet your spouse? And oh, that's amazing. And where were you? And how long did y'all stay engaged? Or just subtract yourself from some of these conversations, and it's amazing how fulfilled you get from having real meaning,
Mhm.
in a human relationship from other people.
Well, and you're going to take those experiences, those memories with you. Like I hands down can tell you people I've met at the airport, people I've met on the bus,
Yeah.
people I've met at a restaurant. We went down to Phoenix and we went to La Bamba Taco Restaurant, and the experience there of just willing to ask, like, how did you cook this? What did you? And I want to have Edson on my podcast, Edson Garcia. That's a
Yeah.
shout out to you.
Yep.
Like my whole family will remember that more than
Yes.
the Mariners
Any present.
preseason game that we went to. It was like that experience
Yep.
of getting to have someone talk about their business and what they've done and how they go above and beyond for customers. It's like that is so much more memorable, and it lightens them up, but then it also you're taking away from it. So you're subtracting yourself from that. And what I'm hearing is that you're actively listening, right? And you're paying attention, you're being present. And I think that goes to do that with your kids. 100% do that with your
Oh
children.
man. Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. It is. And again, I know we touched on that, the subtraction, right? And what are you willing to sacrifice? And I guess I want to put a nice red bow, if I may,
Mhm.
on asking that question of yourself. Curiosity. I want to put a bow on that, and that's again, what ultimately did I learn from all of these one-off phrases that we've been using here today?
Mhm.
Is this something that I use and I speak to myself? It's in my book, which is the more I sacrifice of myself, the more of myself I find. And I'd
Mhm.
really like for people to think about that because it's true.
And repeat that.
The more of myself I sacrifice, the more of myself I find.
Mm. I love that, and I know that is part of your book. And so, is
It
that
is.
and is that something that one day just came to you, or you just started to realize? I know that you journal, and I know that we had discussed about writing a book, and it's like that's how I started to write my book, because I was just journaling the life lessons that my instructor and my dad and all my friends, all of my confidence team had taught me, and it was just journaling, right? And it's like
Yeah.
really self-reflection and those life lessons. Is that something that came to you through journaling? Is that something that came to you from an Army buddy? Like, how did you start to bring all those things together?
Man, I wanted to write a book for a very, very long time. I've talked to my family about this forever. I want to write a book, and I never did it. And I just have to take us to COVID real quick to answer the question. And everything was wonderful for my family during COVID. We had no issues, thankfully. And I was working from home for a short period of time. My wife was a school teacher. She wasn't teaching that summer, and we were holding hands, walking at lunch, and everything was great. And this voice out of nowhere, this feeling of, man, you're not where you're supposed to be, Scott, started just irritating me. And to fast forward through that, it got to the point to where I was gaining great frustration because I was feeling very uncomfortable. What do you mean I'm not where I'm supposed to be? And what it really boiled down to is what I was wrestling with is broken promises. Okay.
With
And those
yourself?
broken promises, I'm sorry, yeah, with myself.
Okay.
Broken promises with myself is what was really surfacing inside me. And I began to examine what those broken promises were. And it was, I never did the Ironman. I promised I was never wrote the book. I promised myself, right? There was this list of things that just, for whatever reason, came to the surface during COVID for no reason. And so the one that was most appealing to me and inspired me was I wanted to do the Ironman. And so my very first Ironman, my 140.6 mile race, was actually out in Tempe, and you're where you were talking about Phoenix and tacos.
That sounds awful.
And so it was it was during my Ironman training that I knew as I got closer to race day, then I started going back to, okay, what other broken promise did you have that you're going to need to make a decision on? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to do? And it was writing the book. So after I did the Ironman race and then some half Ironman races, after that, the next year, I began sitting down and answering the question, okay, well, what's the book going to be about? I mean, what are you going to talk about? And then you have to reconcile all of those things. And so that was really the genesis of it, was broken promises. And I don't like those. I want to reconcile those things.
Okay. So I just want to pause you, and that I think that translates so well to the audience. I want everybody to hear that, is that it's like you had an idea, you had this broken promise. You didn't want to make a broken promise, is really what you were doing. Is you because there was still time to write a book, and you did.
Yeah.
But you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, you're like, I don't want to lie to myself. I don't want to break my promise. That's something that I do want to do in my life, and I just keep making excuses, or I rationalize why I'm not doing it. And so you were able to sit back and say, okay, I can do this. And you actually did it. But then that ties into, like, you started writing these ideas, and then all of a sudden you just started moving toward the direction that you wanted to go, which was to write the book, whether it sucked or whether it's a bestseller. You just started, and you made it happen, and you just started moving in the direction that you wanted to go.
Yeah, the way I say that in my book is, I believe if you want to do something, walk the way and the way will appear. You don't need all the answers. Walk the way and the way will appear.
And you don't know the answers. I've only found that if you're walking in a direction that you want to go and you see somebody already at the end, you're like, how'd you get there? It'll help you a lot, right? But you don't know what you're going to change. And most people, if they knew what was at the end, they might not ever start, because how much time and effort it would take to get there. And so the sooner you start and you keep going, once you get past that half point, you're like, I've already accomplished this so much more. I'm not going to quit now. So I'm going to keep going. But it's like, most people don't start. And I would tell them, like, when you get to that end, if you look back, you're like, I don't know if I would have started this if I had known how much time and effort, but you did.
That's correct. Yeah, walk the way and the way will appear. It's really important. And I also say, I'm glad you mentioned the end looking back. Another thing I write about, and you'll understand this, is later in the book, I write about what I call the fiery middle. Okay. The middle is what gets all of us. This is where the quitting is at
Yes.
its highest impact. And why the middle? Well, two things. The middle is you're too far away from where you started to return, and you're too far away from where you think you want to go to see it. You're in the fiery middle. And the fiery middle has a purpose in your life. And that purpose is to burn away the things that you can't take with you to actually go to where you're supposed to go.
Mm.
It has to burn those things away, things that were not meant to be on the journey with you. And believe it or not, sometimes it's relationships. There are some people you have a relationship with that weren't meant to be with you where you're going to go. Remember, you can walk the same path. You have different destinations, and that's okay.
And that is totally fine. And if your relationships aren't bringing you up and you're not bringing them up, it's time to reevaluate those relationships. You can keep going the same direction, right? Like we're all on the same plane, but I don't need to know everybody on there. Like we're all going to
That's correct.
That's correct. Right.
What's more important is at the end of the day, right, is walk the way will appear. Oh, and by the way, when it appears, like me, every single day, I have to ask myself, and I do, and I get pissed off about it some days because I don't want to answer. I want to be left alone. Hey, Scott, what are you willing to sacrifice today? It's a question every day. It's not one question. It's a question you have to answer every day. And it's monotonous, but it's true. And I just want to speak that truth because if you're willing to answer it every day and you're willing to walk the way, you will find a way. That's human nature. That's how we do it.
But that's ownership too. That's you owning your path, right? Like, and most people
that comes with it. That's your luggage.
100%. And you're the one that can look back and say, did I break my own promise? Am I, I know I quit. I know I didn't give it all. I know that I sandbagged it. What I was going to say also is that fiery spot that is the time as an entrepreneur and having several businesses in my life. That is the time where shiny toy. And now I want to jump to something else because that looks better now. And it doesn't look as hard or as difficult. And all my friends are making more money over there. So I'm going to go do that now. And then you don't realize, but you're starting at zero again. Right. And it's like,
that's right.
If you just dredge through that fire, eventually you're going to get to your destination. But that is the hardest part as an entrepreneur, is that not to see the shiny light or the shiny toy over there and jump ship and give up on what I've put into it. Because and in my experience, if for the people that do jump ship, your learning curve is very high at the very beginning, and you're getting all this feedback like, yes, I'm making headway, I'm doing this, but then you will eventually hit that fiery patch with that one too. And it's like, if you can just go through this, and if it's a destination or a direction that you want to go to, you just keep making it happen. You stay curious along that path. And here's my plug for other people, is that power of a mentor. If you can find people, ask them and ask their advice, because they might reveal something, a nugget that can help you get there faster. But if you just keep going through the suck, eventually you're going to make it. And no one knows how long it's going to take. But if it's a destination that you want to achieve, you are going to get there as long as you keep making it happen and taking those steps forward.
Yeah. Beautifully said, because it, as far as I'm concerned, it is never, ever, ever about the distance you've covered. It's about the direction. Just keep going the direction.
I love that. All right. Well, I'm going to circle back really quick to your military training and their Ironman competitions. Which was more difficult, or are they different paths?
Yeah, two different animals, actually. The military, believe it or not, was more physical. And of course, in a combat environment, your life's on the line. Anything can happen at any moment. So it's hard to describe what it feels like to know that you could step in the wrong place and there's a landmine or an IED or a missile could land on you at any point in time. Living under that weight, there's not a real way to articulate that. So it's different.
Sure.
Ironman is, honestly, it's more psychological, because you've got to live inside your head and you've got to make a decision. Am I going to get up today and I'm going to run or ride the 82 mile bike ride and then get off and run 7 miles after that and then go home and mow the yard and have family time? I mean, there is an endless number of decisions that you have to make that is really hugely psychological. Yes, it's physically demanding and you've got to eat and do all that stuff, but the psychological part of training for a full Ironman race is a challenge in and of itself. And it will change you as a human being. It literally changed me as a human being doing that race.
Well, you've worn so many shirts through your life, and you've gone through a lot of lightning strikes, both pro and con on those ones that have almost destroyed you as an inventor and as a business owner
Yep.
and with investors. And it's like all of these things keep coming and hitting you. And it's like still being able to press through that and to be able to see that light. What would you say is besides being able to talk to yourself? I know family is so important to you and your support system.
Yes.
Do you feel that family has been having a confidence team around you has helped you make those jumps from the lily pad to the lily? Because even in the darkest times, you mentioned you're in your own head all the time. And I think this goes to anybody listening. Like you're going through problems. You think you're the only person with this diagnosis. You're bankrupt. Somebody stole
Right.
all this. Somebody stole your car. Like
Yep.
you're not the only person to ever go through it, but in your mind, you're the only one going through it. What would you tell
Yep.
the audience about the support system that you had that maybe they should look for?
Yeah, this may be a little different than they're expecting, right? The audience may be expecting to say that it was my family or my wife that was whispering my ear, like in Rocky One when Adrian tells him to win, and the whole movie changes, right? And that wasn't my experience in all of these life tragedies. It
Please
was
tell
it was
me,
the
hold on.
opposite.
Please tell me that it's the sword behind you, the Excalibur Conan sword. Is that what it is?
I hold it up like this, Blue, and
I'm a sword guy, but I'm a katana owner. So, okay. So it's the opposite. I have to try that. If you're not watching this episode, he has a giant Excalibur sword hanging from his wall. It's like Conan. I love it. All right. So it's back to the opposite.
But the answer, the answer was not that they were whispering in my ear. The answer was for me is that I was looking at them, and I could not fathom a world that existed that I failed on their behalf.
Ooh. Wow.
So to your audience, right? This is my deepest, humblest advice that I could give you wherever you are in your life right now is get back up. Do it for yourself. But if you love somebody, get back up for them. You can do it.
Oh my God, I love that, Scott. And I'm going to add one more thing. If you love someone, get back up because that person loves you too. And we had Tristan Hyde on, and she went through so many lightning strikes in her life. And my wife and I, she listened to the episode, and we were just like, I don't know if I could get back up from those setbacks, those lightning strikes. And when I heard her message, all I could hear is that people loved her, right? People believed in her. But then she loved them. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that. It's like, if you love someone, get back up, pick yourself up, because eventually, if you keep getting up more often than anybody else, you're eventually going to win and you're going to break through it. Even if it seems like it's the end of the world at that moment, you will see the light at the end of the day.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that may say, well, listen, who's going to get up for me? You can't think that way. You can't, because I thought that for a short period of time. Wait a minute, if I get up for everybody else, who's there for me? Right? And that's an excuse. That's just an excuse. It's a crutch, right? The only answer is that you should love yourself enough, right? Have confidence in yourself enough. Fix the broken promises. Get back up. That you have to do that for yourself because there's not enough power from somebody else to get you back up. You have to get back up. And of course, the tip of the mountain for me was looking at my wife and my son and my daughter and refusing. And by the way, I may have failed. I may have failed miserably, but by God, I'll be standing up when I fail on their behalf. And I'll be grateful for that. And my wife and my son and daughter saw that in me because they lived through some of these tragedies in my life. And they saw dad fight for them. And they saw dad sacrifice. Matter of fact, they saw the real dad. They didn't see the hero dad that has no flaws. They saw the real dad. And that was one of the greatest gifts that I could give to my family is that this is the real dad who loves us and cares for us and fights for us and sacrifices for us. That was the gift.
Oh, okay. So, and not to change subjects much, but it's like everything with social media now, everyone, and I'm not saying everyone, but you post the highlights of your life. Everything is the best of the best. And no one understands all of the sacrifice, all of the lightning strikes in between A and Z. They only see Z. And they're like, wow. But for your kids to live through that, for your wife to experience that, and to
Yep.
know the heart, they believe in you that much more. And that
Correct.
creates a tighter bond between the two and the three and the four of you as a family cohesive community that you're coming together. And it's like to be able to experience that and to show that's authentic, right? Like that is like
Yep.
living that life of the lightning strikes. And that is a greatest gift because it's not all rosy. And for people who think that it's all rosy, I have so many mentors and people that I aspire to be like or want to achieve certain things, but it's like their path is totally different. And what were they willing to sacrifice to get where they are?
Yep.
And am I willing to sacrifice the same thing? Maybe not.
Yep.
Maybe I am, but maybe not. So I can't look at them with envy and jealousy because I don't know what they went through, but your family does, Scott, and you have gone
That's
through
right.
a whole lot. If I knew Scott 20 years ago, what would surprise me most about who you are today? What is the biggest change in those 20 years for you?
You wouldn't recognize the two people, first of all. And the biggest change, I'll say it from describing the person I was before as compared to the person that's on the podcast today, is the person I was many, many years ago. And again, I wasn't rude and disrespectful. I was still yes sir, no sir, please and thank you. But all I cared about really at the end of the day was achieving things, gaining possessions, looking a certain way, feeling a certain way, right? It was all of the things of the world. The world kept promising me, Scott, if you do these things, X, Y, causality, right? This is what you're going to get. And yeah, keep measuring yourself by other people. That's really important, Scott, because if they've got it, you should have it too. And it's just over the hill, just around the corner. Keep going. But I keep arriving, but there's nothing. Keep going, Scott. Right? That's an empty person who, by the way, you wake up, it's a title of my book. You wake up every day to die again, right? You wake up every day just to die a little bit more. And there's millions of people out there right now who wake up every day just to die a little bit more. And as I began to make those changes away from that, looking at myself and saying, I think I said this early in the podcast, Scott, what is it inside you? What is it that you feel like all of these extraneous things are required for you to be happy, to have peace, to have joy, to have love, to be patient? What is it? And I began to look at all those things and wait a minute, I don't have to have any of them. Now, again, I didn't come to that all at one moment, but I didn't need any of it.
Yes.
So I summed it up for myself. I summed it up by saying this: there is no vacation, there's no possession, there's no distance, there's nothing I have to do, there's no place I have to travel, because exactly what I need to be happy and peace and love and joy is exactly where I'm standing, my physical presence. But I have to make a choice to do that. So that early part of me, man, he was a nice guy and everybody got along with him, but man, he wasn't happy.
Oh, and I think that's the part of the journey where people don't realize, like, the success doesn't create the happiness, that new car, that money in your account. It's not what makes you happy. And it's not what brings you joy. It's like the entire journey is what success is all about. It's like that, the happiness journey, and if you can go on that journey happy with a smile on your face with the people that you love and making new connections and being curious, that is what's going to bring you joy. It's not having those possessions or those titles or those accolades. It's like, but you have to have that perspective, and that perspective is a hard thing to accept and to reflect on. And I can't tell anybody the moment that they're going to have that epiphany. But the moment that it does, it really does make you step back.
It's a lightning strike.
100% a lightning strike, 100%. And I think that what makes this conversation so powerful, that it's like, I think a lot of people are really chasing that achievement and hoping that it will heal something inside of them. Like it is their purpose, or it's going to make them happy. It's going to bring that joy. But in reality, what you're saying is eventually life forces us to confront ourselves anyway. And I appreciate your honesty and your story and all of the things that you have achieved, but also the friendship that you and I have created now. Because I think this conversation will go for another hour. I have no problem. I have so many more questions that I want to ask you.
Well, if I could fill in one blank that you're making me think of, I think it's compelling, is, Scott, did you apply the same logic to writing the book of what are you willing to sacrifice and subtraction versus addition and all these things, these little phrases. Did you apply all those things to when you wrote your book? And 1,000,000,000% yes. And that's why I wanted to say this is I did. I asked myself that question for days and days and days. Scott, what are you willing to sacrifice? By the way, I'm steadily typing. Okay. And there's this voice in my head telling me, Blue, hey man, I know we haven't talked in a long time, but nobody's going to read this. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Just kept hearing that over and over again. I just kept typing, Scott, what are you willing to sacrifice? And boy, here it come full circle again, Blue. Wait a minute. Nobody cares. I care. That's all that matters. I care what I'm writing. I may be the only one that buys my book. That's fine. I care what I'm writing. And number two, Scott, why now? Well, because the book was ready for a long time, but I wasn't. Well, what does that mean, Scott? It means I realized that in order to actually write a book that is meaningful in today's world, is something had to be sacrificed. And that answer was me. I couldn't be the hero of the story. I had to write 24 chapters. Of course, I didn't know it at the time, but 24 chapters of sacrificing myself publicly and professionally and gracefully and authentically and transparently so that a reader, and many, many, many beta readers have told me this, could read my story and say, oh my God, I see myself in Scott's story, only my facts are different. And that's what I've heard from everybody that's read the book. One of my beta readers said to me, Scott, I got 6 chapters in. You've had me laughing and crying. I had to put the book down.
I love that.
Right. After 6 chapters, So I just want to share that as all the stuff we're talking about, whether you're writing a book or you're on a lily pad stuck, literally, Blue, we've covered so much ground that I think is powerful for your listeners, man.
Well, and you're not only sacrificing time. So like when I wrote a book and I'm writing my second book now is like, I have to wake up at 4 a.m. and write before my kids get up. I have to stay up late. I have to, if we're going to do podcasting, it's like the sacrifice just to have something done. Am I willing to sacrifice that time, that energy, that effort, that finance, whatever it is? Am I willing to sacrifice that? And the answer, if it's meaningful enough to me, is yes. Yeah. And then when I have that book published, I can look back and say it was worth it, even if only one person reads it. And like you, I only wanted to share my message to my kids, my daughter at the time, so that she knew more about me. Whether or not I made $1 million on my book, which I have not, it would be like, that's the reason, right? That was the main purpose. But then the second one, and you tap into this, is that it's not, even though it could be my story, it's about the audience. What's in it for them? What's in it for the reader? And I want the message to translate to them and that they can relate to it, because if it's memorable and valuable to them, they're going to refer that book, and then it will spread like wildfire, so that I don't have to be stuck in the fire all the time in the middle.
You'll never know this until people read. You have to get deep, deep, deep into my book before I tell everybody that one of the key reasons I wrote this book is it is a long form story of everything about Dad to my husband, right? To my wife, my son, and my daughter, because they had heard so many stories and they lived through some of them, but they didn't know all of it because Dad never shared it, because Dad protected them from what was going on inside Dad, right? I remained a dad, I remained a father during these lightning strike moments, but this was a long form story to them that I couldn't tell over 1,000 Thanksgiving dinners. But it wasn't until I got, a third or a fourth of the way into the book that I began to really start to understand my audience beyond my family. Again, you don't know this reading the book, but the audience in that Wake Up to Die again, there's these two people out there in the world, generally speaking. Some of us are people that wake up every day to die a little bit. And then there's people who are on the other side of that, and they wake up every day to die a little bit, but it's beautiful because they're a better version today than yesterday. They gave up something, right? And you talk to that, and what you're saying about writing to your family members and your daughter and wanting to share and wanting to be more, that connection that brings us together. And that's the beautiful thing about long form books. If people will read them, it brings us closer together,
But it does. And I can tell you how many times people have come up to me and they're like, oh my God, when you dealt with your bully this way, that really impacted me. Or I love that you love Star Wars. And I didn't know you had karate. You're impacting people and you're making a difference. And whether it's 1 million people or if it's that one person that you're trying to reach, that's what makes the difference. And then knowing in your heart that you gave it your all, you didn't quit, and you kept the promise to yourself, and you stayed curious. I love
That's
that,
it, man.
Scott. I love that.
I have check marked the green box for myself. Whatever the book does, man. I've already found that one person that changed their life in my beta reader, literally changed their life, more than one actually. And of course, my family, and anything that happens past this, Blue, and the opportunity to speak to audiences and share with them, and all of that is something I aspire to do, and I appreciate your leadership in all of that. It's going to be a great journey to help other people in the audience, and in lives that we can come into contact with, and that's a great gift that we've been given and we've earned.
And it is a gift, right? To be able to make an impact with people and to reach people that you have no idea who you could help make a difference in their life.
That's right.
And you're doing
That's
that
right.
every single day, whether you're on the stage or whether from your book or from the conversations that you're having at the airport on American Airlines or Delta now, Alaska Airlines. I got to give a plug to my wife because she's Alaska. So, well, where can people find out more about you? And then where can they get your book? Because it just launched.
It did. So the book, Wake Up to Die Again, on Amazon. Easy title, provocative. And so look it up on Amazon.com. On my website, which is my name, ScottLackey.com, I have some hard copy, special edition books available there for those who would like not only just an autographed copy, but a special message, maybe written to somebody that could use this book. Already have some orders for that. But I'd love to, ScottLackey.com, special edition, or Amazon.com, Wake Up to Die Again. And I hope your listeners will give it a shot. And both Blue and I would love to hear if it's been impactful in your life.
Oh, I absolutely would. And that's another reward bucket that's filled when somebody gives a review or a testimonial on it. And they say, I had no idea that I had a relationship with my mom or my dad that way. And it really helped me with that makes the whole difference. And you're reaching more than that one person. So, well, I love that. I love the difference that you're making. And I love the friendship that you and I have created, but I have to meet you in person, mister. And I have to meet the person behind the voice of awesomeness. And I'm not saying that you need to bring that Conan sword, but I'm giving you kudos for it.
I may just ship it to you and let you hold it for a while.
Yes, I love it. It needs to be katana on the Japanese side. So, well, I love it. I love you. Thank you so much, Scott, for being here today and sharing your message. And I would advise everybody to pick up your book, because within that is all of your stories of your lightning strikes, which we didn't even tap into. Your overcoming these challenges and these lightning strikes is something to look at. And I respect you and I look up to you, Scott, and I'm wishing you the best luck. And I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, that's going to happen, Blue, I promise. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to your audience and talk to you again. And I appreciate the friendship. And we'll see where this goes. Maybe after the book, we may have to come back and do part 2.
You got it, man. You got it. But we're bringing Crom, the sword. I'm telling you.
Yeah, you have your katana and I'll bring my Excalibur. We'll see how that works out. So
love it, Scott. Thank you so much.
See you next time.
If this episode brings you value or you know someone who could benefit from it, the best way to support the show is by sharing and subscribing. It's completely free and helps us reach more people. And if you have any questions, feedback, or guests you'd like me to interview, drop a comment while you're there. I'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in. And let's continue sharing optimism and positivity.